Hey there and welcome back to Sims Sunday. My name is Pete and you know the drill. In this series we try to complete The Sims 3. We continue today's episode right where we left off in the last one with more toddler madness, as one of the goals for today's episode is to teach all of our 3 toddlers the remaining toddler skills and consequently age them up to children. And Pablo is the first one to learn another skill in this episode. Now that he is potty trained, only walking remains. Now, in today's episode I will try to keep up a somewhat faster pace, and that has several reasons actually. First of all, there won't be an episode next week because I will be on holiday, and so I'm trying to give you a bit more this week. We are also once again at a point where not all that much is happening in terms of progression, and I simply don't want the episode to get boring. Now we can quickly jump over to Patrick, who is just about to consume a few life fruits. As you can see, Patrick's age bar is close to the maximum, but I don't want him to die yet. I will explain why in a second, but for now we can check in with Pedro, who just learned to talk and now only needs potty training until he's ready to age up. But back to Patrick though. The reason why I want to keep him alive a bit longer is very simple actually. Patrick is the only member of our household who can cook Ambrosia, and we will need at least one serving to eventually bring back a ghost. That is something that I definitely have planned for this completionist playthrough, but with the size of the current household that will likely take place a bit down the line. Now as you can see, Paul is also having a few life fruits here, and I don't have any super long-term plans with him, but it will still likely take a few days until he has maxed out the guitar skill, and it would be a shame if he died just a day early. And here we have Pablo, who with the help of Reid just learned how to walk, and is therefore now the first of our 3 toddlers who is ready to age up. Then after a quick feeding session, Reid is once again successful, this time in potty training Pedro. In the meantime, Patrick has finished his tour through the garden, he has talked to his plants a bit to raise his social bar, and he can now start to prepare for his workday later. A nice shower will get his hygiene bar back up, and playing with the SimLife goggles will raise his fun bar and give him a positive moodlet, which will raise his mood and therefore increase his work performance. And then, with a good hour until his work shift starts, it's time for him to leave. Patrick is now more than well prepared, and I think he's ready for that last promotion. Back at home, Reid has gotten rid of the children for now. All of them are asleep now, and that means Reid can grab something to eat, then take a shower, and then return to painting. Now, Pauline has been asleep for the last few hours, although she will now also start the meal and shower routine. And then we are rudely interrupted by the first birthday of this episode. Yes, Reid is aging up to adult, and I didn't throw a party on purpose for him. The other household members have enough to do already, there is no need for a party on their schedules. And for Reid himself, the whole affair is also pretty uneventful. After aging up, he will go straight back to painting. The same is true for Pauline, by the way, and so we can now jump back over to Patrick. His work shift at the graveyard has just come to an end, and as expected, Patrick has gotten himself promoted. And that means he has reached the 3rd and final level of the cemetery worker part-time career, and that means we have the last remaining part-time career of the game completed. Back at home, Patrick can now feed the fish while we see Paul improve his guitar skill to level 8, so only 2 more level ups to go until he has maxed that out, and we can strike 2 more lifetime wishes off the list. Patrick is then the first one to go to bed, while with Pauline we will make a trip to town, more specifically to the criminal warehouse. Now, as you know, Pauline reached level 10 of the thief career a few episodes ago, and with her toddlers slowly learning to stand on their own 2 feet, it is now time to think about Pauline's career future again. And for that reason, Pauline will now quit her job in the thief career, but immediately reapply as a criminal. She now re-enters the criminal career at level 5 as a Bagwoman, and she actually does have a shift going on at the moment, so at least for 1.5 hours we can raise her work performance slightly. 1.5 hours later, and we can notice that we have sadly been hit with the going to work bug again, so Pauline's work performance did not change and we just wasted a bit of time. Time that Paul has tirelessly spent playing guitar, but even the best musicians need some sleep, so Paul can now go to bed while Pauline starts another learning session with Patricia. And then it's already the next morning and we can see Patrick well rested in the garden. In the meantime, Pauline and Patricia have switched from walking to potty training, and even though Patricia just used the potty chair, we will now make her use it again, just to finally get the potty training over with. Then, while a well-rested Reid grabs breakfast, the two of them can get back to walking, and after Reid is done eating, he will make the switch with Pauline, and that is because of his family-oriented trait, which allows him to teach toddler skills faster than Pauline. Now Paul is also already awake again and playing guitar, while Pauline just ate a salad and put Pablo and Pedro into their cribs and now gets some well-earned rest. And then we are successful one last time. Patricia now knows how to walk, and that means all of her 3 toddlers have learned all of their toddler skills. And so, while a freshly showered Patrick returns from the garden to feed his fish now, let's prepare for the birthday celebrations. We'll buy a cake, and then Patricia will be the first toddler to age up to a child. Alright, Patricia is a child now, and we can choose one more trait with her, and my choice has fallen on mean-spirited. This trait pretty much does what it says. Patricia will just love to make enemies and use negative social interactions in general. I think that fits quite well with neurotic and insane, and it will definitely make her even more unpredictable. With Patricia done, it's time for birthday number 2, so let's buy another cake and then age up Pablo. We get quickly interrupted by an instance of the Oh My Ghost opportunity for Pauline, and just as a safety measure, we will take that. Then Pablo ages up, and it's time to choose another trait for him as well, and to go along with clumsy and slop, I have chosen absent-minded. This will have him occasionally forget what he's doing, which could make for some interesting moments. Also to note here, Pablo is a bit corpulent, even though none of his parents are. Last but not least, it is now time for Pedro's birthday, although that turned out to be a bit different than expected. Alright, wonderful. Blowing out the candles on the birthday cake has set fire to the entire dining room area, and we now have to wait for the fire service to arrive and hope nobody catches fire in the process. Alright, crisis averted, and I have replaced all the furniture and the birthday cake as well, so hopefully we can now age up Pedro without any further incidents. And here we are, Pedro is now finally also a child, and the trait I chose for him to go along with excitable and easily impressed was party animal. That should help create a very outgoing personality, and Pedro should eventually get along with pretty much everyone. Now that all 3 of our toddlers have aged up, it's also time to upgrade their rooms, as all 3 of them now need proper beds. And after a bit of work in Create a Style, we can put 3 of those in place. Now things are about to get a bit confusing here with 7 Sims that we can directly control, so I won't be able to show off every single action we do, but I will be able to show off, however, is Pedro breaking the toilet here. That finally led me to replace it with the most expensive one in the game, one that has the unbreakable attribute already included. Now after a long day of celebration, Pauline will head to bed, and so will her 3 children, all neatly tucked in one next to the other. After a shower, Reid will also head to bed, and after feeding the remaining fish, Patrick will do the same. And that leaves us with Paul still playing guitar as we skip ahead to the next morning. And so, roughly 4 hours later, we rejoin the household with Pauline in the shower and Pablo getting breakfast. Afterwards, both Pauline and Reid will start painting, while Patricia also grabs something to eat, and Pedro, well, Pedro channels his inner party animal. Then the first order of business for Patrick is to quit his part-time career. After reaching the 3rd and final level, we already skipped the shift yesterday, and there is really no need for him to pursue that career any further. Instead, he can now make himself useful in the garden, while Pablo, Pedro and Patricia get their boogie on in the kitchen. Now, since we don't need to power learn any skills with our children here, I would like to show off a few things that we didn't get to see before with the children in this series. And the first thing is playing a game of tag, which Pablo and Patricia will now engage in. Meanwhile, both Reid and Pauline have finished their respective paintings and can now start new ones. Pedro, on the other hand, is not taking part in the game of tag. Instead, all the dancing has made him hungry, and so he will now grab a salad. Afterwards, it's time for a quick shower and breakfast for Paul, and then party animal Pedro will be the first one to get an outfit overhaul. And feast your eyes upon the party mood personified. That outfit is definitely something else. And to be honest, I didn't stop there. I also thought that a completely white suit would fit him perfectly. The sleepwear, athletic outfit and swimwear remained unchanged, however. After all, I didn't want to go completely overboard. Pedro can now join his siblings outside while we get our weekly book royalties in for Paul, in total over 70,000 simoleons. With another painting done, Reid can now grab something to eat, and a short while later the same is true for Pauline. With the recent cash influx, we now have more than enough money to do a bit of property upgrading, and one of the properties that is not yet at level 3 is the museum that we bought a few days ago. To get it upgraded, we need to get the property value up to 220,000 simoleons, and there is one very easy way to do that. Yes, we are going to put down a jet fighter statue for 75,000 simoleons. That alone is not enough, however, so we can simply clone this sculpture in front here. Those two together make for a nice sight, and most importantly, the property is now upgraded to level 3. And with that, let us now work towards owning all of Sunset Valley's properties, and have Pauline buy a few more residential lots from the phone. And that phone is something we will use again immediately with her, as we're now going to invite over Pauline's boss. The relationship to her boss was not a factor in the thief career, however, as Pauline will soon join the evil branch of the criminal career, that relationship will become a lot more important. And so Pauline can now welcome Nicole Fry outside, and hopefully charm her way into the heart of her superior. The children, meanwhile, will amuse themselves with the sprinkler. 1 hour later, Patrick is done in the garden and can now once again take care of his fish, and while he does, we can get some money back and sell the money tree harvests. The children meanwhile all have dinner together, and outside Pauline and Nicole have become best friends. And just in time as well, because Pauline's work shift isn't too far away, and to prepare she will now play with the sim life goggles for a while. The children will continue to spend the evening in motion. While Patrick wraps dinner, Pedro continues to dance, and Patricia and Pablo have a small workout in front of the TV. Before Pauline leaves, let's fulfill our wish that we've been working on for a few episodes now, because with one more donation of 1,000 simoleons, we can complete the wish to donate 5,000 simoleons in total to Undermine charity. Then it's time for her to leave and begin another shift at the criminal warehouse. With Patrick, meanwhile, we can grab the mail and immediately sell it again, and then I had him start eating some live fruit, but then I realized there is a much more effective way of keeping him alive. Yes, Patrick will now prepare himself a serving of Ambrosia. Meanwhile, all 3 children will make their way over to bed, as we reset Patrick's age back to the beginning of his life stage. And just as Patrick's cleaning up, we can see his brother Paul improve his guitar skill to level 9, so we are getting closer and closer to maxing the skill out. Outside, Reid has finished another painting and can now, just like Patrick, head to bed for today. That allows us to skip ahead roughly 3.5 hours to the end of Pauline's work shift, and no surprises here, Pauline has done this before and so she gets herself a promotion. One more to go until we can once again choose between the evil and the thief branch, and that choice will of course be an easy one. Back at home, Paul can now finally go to bed while Patricia is already well rested again, and so while her mother grabs something to eat, Patricia can take a shower. Her brothers can start the day with another game of tag, and by the way, today is the first day of school for the 3 children, and once again we will very likely push them through school and up to A grades as fast as possible, just to finally be able to age them up to teenagers. Up next, all 3 of them can have breakfast, and earlier you saw Pauline go to bed, while her Uncle Patrick has already made it back into the garden. Now, to get their fun bars up before school starts, Pablo and his sister will play with the sprinkler in the garden, while Pedro takes care of his hygiene and their father Reid has cake for breakfast. And then, a good hour early, all 3 of them will teleport off to school, where I will set them all to work hard, just to get their school performance up as fast as possible. Back at home, Patrick is already done in the garden, since there is not much to harvest at the moment, and so he will now go back to fishing because we are slowly running out of death fish. And for all potential future servings of Ambrosia, we of course need more death fish. Since it's Monday again, we can also collect our weekly investment money, this week just shy of 240,000 simoleons. With Paul, we are now going to approach the whole guitar learning thing a bit differently. He has already played for a few hours in the morning, but he will now take a guitar skill class at the theater. We have more than enough money, and that class should raise the guitar skill slightly faster. The only downside is that we can only take classes once a day. And here he is, noticeable improvement in the guitar skill, and we will have him play a bit more outside while a well-rested Pauline steps out of the shower and begins painting again. Patrick, on the other hand, has now caught enough death fish to prepare another dish of Ambrosia, this one however not for him, but for his brother. And so we also reset the age of Paul now, just to give him a bit more extra time to finally max out the guitar skill. I am fairly optimistic though that he will be able to do that in the next episode, and then we can talk about how we will turn him into a ghost. While Paul picks up the guitar again, all 3 children come home from school, and all of them will now start with their homework to have that out of the way. Then it's time for something to eat, not only for the children, but also for Pauline, and so accompanied by Paul's music, the family will now have dinner. With Patrick, we can pay the bills, sell the money tree harvests and grab the mail, then sell what we received and switch back over to Pauline, who has another work shift coming up and is already preparing her fun bar accordingly. And speaking of fun bars, Pablo, Pedro and Patricia have all gotten somewhat stressed out and will now spend the rest of the evening in front of the TV to get their fun bars back up for another day of school tomorrow. As a matter of fact, Patrick will join them. Watching TV together will not only raise his fun but also his social bar, and he could use a slight boost in both of them. Pauline meanwhile has maxed out her fun bar and has already teleported over to the criminal warehouse, once again to start a shift that will hopefully be the beginning of her journey in the evil branch. Back at home with their fun bars maxed out, it's now time for bed, not only for the children but also for Patrick. And after spending the majority of his day painting, also for Reid. 2 hours later, shortly after midnight, Paul also makes his way to bed, and so to wrap up the episode we can jump ahead to the end of the work shift for Pauline and make the important choice. Once again, she is offered a future in the thief or evil branch of the criminal career, and this time we will choose evil and get her promoted to Henchman. Now in theory that should correctly be Henchwoman, but I'm not one to argue. Instead, let's make the cut in a long and eventful episode. Once again, due to me being on holiday, there will not be an episode next week, and the week after that, Sims Sunday will return as usual. By the way, feel free to let me know how you like the faster pace of this episode. Normally we only do 2 in-game days per episode, but today there were 4, and while I did have to cut out a few things, I still feel like we got to watch all the important events. Of course, if you liked the episode, then leave a thumbs up, and I can say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!